When you buy a trumpet, you buy the trumpet. When you buy a piano, you're buying a piano. So you do research and you buy the whole thing. You're not buying each individual key on the piano and the stool and the this. Like with a drum set, sometimes you can get like, hey, here's the whole starter pack. But many times the stands are not so great on the starter pack. You're gonna have to eventually replace those. The cymbals are usually crap. The drum heads are crap. With a drum set, you have to think about the drums. You have to think about the drum heads. You have to think about the snare wires. You got to think about the stands, bass drum pedal, and the throne, and. We're talking about gear in this episode, specifically what to look for when you're buying your first drum set. Although some of you are like, oh, wait a second, I've already bought my first. Don't jump out if that's the case, because there's going to be some very practical things in here I think we can talk through and think through that have to do with not just buying your first drum set, but really buying any drum set. So this is a daunting thing. I tell people all the time, it's not like playing the piano. It's not like playing the bass guitar or the guitar or trumpet or something like that. When you buy a trumpet, you buy the trumpet. When you buy a piano, you're buying a piano. So you do research and you buy the whole thing. You're not buying each individual key on the piano and the stool and the this. Like you're with a drum set, sometimes you can get like, hey, here's the whole starter pack. But many times the stands are not so great on the starter pack. You're gonna have to eventually replace those. The cymbals are usually crap. The drum heads are crap. With a drum set, you have to think about the drums. You have to think about the drum heads. You have to think about the snare wires. You got to think about the stands. You have to think about the cymbals and the hi-hat clutch you're using and the bass drum pedal and the throne and. So there are some very good, let's talk about this from several standpoints. There are some very good starter packs. So if you're like, I want to start playing the drums. Okay, cool. We need to get you up and running as quickly as possible. And one of the biggest hindrances is you don't have an instrument. There are some fantastic starter drum sets that are out there. I believe Ludwig's is called the Accent. Tama has the Tama Swing Star or something. I forget what it was. They have an entry level. Pearl has, they all have their entry level. For me, I prefer, because I've played on several of them, my son has the Tama one. I have a Ludwig one here set up at the drum studio, specifically for when we have camps so that people can check it out. By the way, new camp schedule's out for 2025. Go check it out. Several of them are sold out. I don't want you to miss it if you want to come. I'd love to hang out with you. As well, online drum school, been open for 13 years. That link is also in the show notes. I want them to be able to play on a $600 drum set and see that it's great. It's fine. It's going to sound good. So if that's the case, it's like, Steven, I'm looking for the quickest way to get up and running. Okay, cool. You need to go buy a starter drum set. That's going to come with cymbals, stands, and the drums and heads on them, and it will get you started. Okay? And then you'll do what I did. My first one was a Ludwig rocker. That was what they called kind of the Accent series back when I was coming up. It was the rocker series, right? So, and I played that all the way up until college, my first year of college. Put some nice heads on it, replace the cymbals, thrones, all that stuff. So what that does is that gets you up and running, and then you're able to replace pieces as you want. So like, oh, this hi-hat stand sucks. Okay, I'm going to go spend $100 on a new hi-hat stand, or this drum throne sucks. I'm going to spend a little money on the drum throne. So you can piece together some things as you go, but that gets you up and running. That's the first thing I want to think about when buying my first drum set is this a hindrance to me starting the drums? If it is, let's get the easiest way to start that, and that is, let's get a starter drum set. And if you're like, gun to my head, I would go get a Ludwig Accent kit. It's going to be fine. Like it's going to be just a fine kit for you to play on. Okay, if you're like, Steven, I've been playing, I didn't buy a kit, I've been borrowing a kit, but I know kind of what I'm doing, what am I looking for? So really, we want to be looking for, here are some things that you can begin to look for. And let's start looking at thrones. So like, let's say that starter drum set. It's going to come with a pretty crap throne, right? And so at that point, I begin looking at what are some drum thrones, not that I can buy and then buy again in a few years, but what are some drum thrones that maybe I could purchase once and I don't have to purchase it again. For me, every time it's Rock and Sock drum thrones. They are a little bit pricier, but I've got one that's been going for like 24 years. And it's still great. We have it set here up at studio. So for me, it's looking at what is the quality of the build, looking at reviews for that, and then figuring that out. But a drum throne is something you're going to be using all the time, so I kind of start there. And then I'll branch out into bass drum pedal. The bass drum pedal that comes with that type of a kit, very starter pedal with hardware, right? So then we're going to start looking at like, DW3000, or, looking at the Tama Iron Cobra, the Iron Cobra 200, I think it is, or something like that. So you start looking at pedals that are just above the entry level. And we grab one. and then we can later upgrade that one. Okay, so that's kind of the process I'm looking at. As I want to get started, and then we start graduating up. Like with Iron Cobra, I know they've got like the Iron Cobra. They've got like their Tama starter pedal, and then by the way, I'm not endorsed by any drum company these days. I left Tama a few years ago just because I wanted to kind of play some different things. So I am endorsed by Zildjian and Aquarian and Vic Firth and Alclair In-Ears and Earthworks, microphones, as well as Lawton microphones and several others. But drums, I play whatever I want to. Tama does have like the entry-level Tama bass drum pedal, and then you're going to go up to like the Iron Cobra 200, and then like the Iron Cobra and Speed Cobra. Those are going to be kind of the more pricier ones. But again, an Iron Cobra, I've got one that's like 25 years old and it's still going. So once you spin that 250 on a bass drum pedal, that's going to be the last bass drum pedal. Like if you spend, for instance, if you get a pair of New Beats, let's say Zildjian New Beat hi-hats, 250, but you wouldn't have to buy more hi-hats. That's it. Like that's a great enough hi-hat that you can gig on, record with. So the goal is to buy something that's quality. We also need to look at in the used market, they hold their value pretty well once you get past entry-level stuff. So if I did buy a drum pedal and later, let's say I bought like a DW 3000 or something, and later I want to sell that, you can sell that and recoup some of your money and put that with the other money to go ahead. I always have kind of a slush pool that I'm playing with when it comes to drums, so that I can purchase what I need to, but I usually sell gear to purchase other gear. I was just talking to Grant the other day. I'm like, hey, we got this camera, we've got new cameras in the studio. Let's sell this camera, recoup some of the money. I'm always flipping gear. We call it the herd, looking at the status of the herd. And so the same thing goes with stands. You're going to have your entry-level stands, and then you're going to start having some other stands. Really, crash cymbal stands are not as big of an issue, and ride cymbal stands, those are not the two that I would spend my time on. Bass drum pedal, and then hi-hat stand. That's another one that I would spend some time looking for a nice one. And as well as the snare stand. Particularly, I like to have a rotating ball, so I can kind of take the snare and rotate it in whatever, not just up and down, and not just forward. I want it to be able to tilt in all directions. And so a lot of times they have some great hardware packs that you can pick up. The hardware packs and the cymbal packs are typically going to be your cheapest route to go unless you're buying used. It's going to be your cheapest route to go. And so we bought the entry-level drum kit, and then I'm going to start with, okay, as I upgrade things, it's going to be a throne, bass drum pedal, snare stand, hi-hat stand. I'll upgrade those eventually. Drum heads, so you're going to have what are called factory heads that come on those drums, and they're just going to be pretty cheap heads, and they're going to wear out pretty quick and not sound great. So then you want to set aside a little time to get some drum heads. With drum heads, we really have, there's more options than this, but there's 4 basic options. There's clear one ply, clear 2-ply. That means there's 2 heads that are put together, a little bit thicker sound, not as much, more attack, not as much tone and ring. And then there is coated single ply and double ply. Those are really the 4 options we have: clear, single, and double, and then coated, single, and double. And we have a lot of variations of those with dots and with this and with but those are kind of the 4 basics.
This podcast is brought to you by the Drum Better Daily program. That's actually my online drum school that I've run now for 12 plus years. Not only have I been playing the drums professionally since the age of 15, I've been teaching since the age of 18. Matter of fact, I talked to one of my first student a few days ago. I actually called him to see if he could sub a gig out for me. Daniel, love you, man. And he's still playing. He's still doing it on a pro level. And I have been committed to teaching for 22 plus years now. I would love to have you go check it out at stevensdrumshed.com. You can find a link to that in the show notes or video description, whichever platform you're watching it on. But it truly is a community of like-minded drummers where we are striving to just be the best that we can be at the drums. In addition to over 70 pre-recorded drum courses, there's also a tech talk area where we talk about everything technology related as it pertains to the drums, e-kits, recording, doing videos, all of that stuff. There are forums where you can hang out with the other students as well. We do 2 live video student calls every week that you can join if you'd like to. We do guest artist calls monthly, and I'll even make you a personalized lesson plan if that's what you need. Yes, we talk about the nuts and bolts of drumming. Yes, I give you exercises, but we also talk a lot about how to practice more efficiently, how to practice better and how to get more out of your practice time. I know you're just like me. You're busy, you're being pulled by work, by family, by friends, by other responsibilities. Whenever you practice, you really want to see gains and have it be productive. That is what we focus on in the Drum Better Daily program. I'll have to say personally, it's been really cool because some of these students I've worked with for over 12 years, we started running drum camps here in 2022, and I got to meet some of them in person for the first time. Those drum camps have been selling out, blowing my mind with how much fun they are and how great a time it is to bring the community together in person. I'd love to have you be a part of it.
And so I want to spend some time looking at what I want to get. And then once I get a set of drum heads, if I get a new set sometime, I don't throw my old ones away. I usually put them in the closet. And that way, if I bust a drum head, I pull the old one out and I put it back on there. And I don't have to stop playing. I just have to wait till I can save up for another drum head. Cymbals. Let's talk about cymbals. The drums, you can keep that, let's say you got Ludwig accent. You can keep that kit. And it's going to sound great. I've recorded with the one we've got here. It sounds great. The one thing that you'll have issues with a little bit is the hardware, because that's kind of whenever you're upgrading, sure, yeah, we get nicer wood, we get nicer bearing edges, et cetera, and so forth. You can get killer sounds out of those drums. The hardware, though, is not as robust, and so it's a little bit cheaper. So that is something that eventually you'll get tired of fidgeting with is just the cheap hardware. It won't stay in tune, those kinds of things. But the drum set itself, that would be the last thing I would look at upgrading is the drum set. The drum set would be great with me. It would be, first thing I'm going to look at is like, okay, do I need to get some new drum heads? Then it's going to be, okay, let me start looking at a couple of stands here. Mainly the bass drum pedal would be my first one. Maybe the throne. If that throne doesn't bother you, you may go to like a hi-hat stand. The pedal stands are going to be the ones that most bang for your buck when you're starting out. And then cymbals. So cymbals, cymbals are really one of the only things that spending more money actually, doesn't just, increase it's like doubles the value, because they use a different alloy in the cymbals, and you just, this B8 type of an alloy doesn't sound as good as when you go up to the nicer cymbals. And so with cymbals, I tell people, save up a little bit, and you can either buy them one at a time, so buy your hi-hat and your crash and your ride, or you can buy like a cymbal pack. I was helping a student at the last camp look at Forks Drum Shop, and we were looking at the Zildjian S cymbals, which are not their entry-level cymbals, but they're a little step up, but they don't sound as nice as like the A series. So we have their entry-level cymbals, which used to be scimitars. I don't know what they call them now. And then you have the S cymbals, and then you go up to the A series, and then the A customs, or the AA, then the A customs, and then you go to the Ks, the Constantinoples, and those kinds. But the important thing to remember is the easiest way to get up and running is to just buy a kit and start with that. You can look used. Many times you can find a used Ludwig accent or Tama Pearl, a starter type kit for $200-$300 on Facebook Marketplace all day. And you clean it up, bring it home, polish it, clean it up. That's how I got my nephew drumming. There was an entry-level drum set. I got the whole thing for a really steal, and I spent a couple weeks cleaning it, and then I sent it, to my brother, and it showed up on Christmas morning, and they got to give it to him. So, but I spent all that time restoring it for him because it had been sitting on a shelf for a very long time. So my biggest thing for you is to purchase something that's going to get you playing the drums, and then we can worry about upgrading things. The things I would look at first upgrading would be drum heads, then the bass drum pedal, then the hi-hat stand, then the drum throne, then maybe the snare stand, and last I would look at those cymbals. But the drums themselves, those are going to be fine for a very long time. Now, if you want to resell that kit, usually you can resell those types of kits for between $250, $300 pretty easy on like a Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, eBay if you want to ship it. But those flip pretty easy, and the higher level gear that you get, it holds its value. But make no doubt about it, the drum pedal, the bass drum pedal my dad got me, the hi-hat stand my dad got me, the snare stand my dad got me. One Christmas I got a snare stand and a hi-hat stand. I still have them. They still work. The drum throne that Kelly got me our first year was my Christmas present for the first year we were married. It was all we could afford. That was my whole Christmas. I still use it. So spending money on quality drum gear, it's going to last you for a very, very long time. But that's the easiest way to do it, is to get one of those starter kits and then go from there. If you ever have any questions, you can always email me, help@stevensdrumshed.com. I answer all the emails and try to respond to you in a timely manner. And sometimes you'll even find your question here on an episode. If you need some help with your drumming, that's where I'd really love to dive in with you. There's a link to my online drum school, the Drum Better Daily program. You can find that in the show description. And then also drum camps. we got the 2025 season coming up. There's only 6 of them. I think 72 spots total. The past 3 years have sold out, so I don't expect this one to be any different. We've already sold 2 of them out, and we just released it a week and a half ago. So I expect those to sell out pretty quick. But grab a spot if you can, and I'll see you here in the next episode.